Dr. Fox, what progress has been made on this trip towards a free trade deal with China?
Well, we've been discussing what our future trade relationships might look like. Of course, we're not allowed to negotiate, let alone sign, any trade agreement while we're still in the European Union. What we have set up is a trade and investment review, which is a standard tool that we use to determine the options for scoping out a future agreement, and we've had very strong cooperation from the Chinese government on that.
But these agreements take a long time to set up, so if you're only scoping it out, it will be a long time before anything is actually signed, even after we leave the EU.
Well, there are all sorts of trade agreements. There's the full gold standard free trade agreement, which is something that we've seen a lot in recent times, but more recently we've seen mutual recognition agreements, equivalence agreements, ways in which economies can be opened up short of a free trade agreement. So we're looking at all of those. We're looking at the investment relationship. We're seeing how we can get more Chinese investment into the UK, but we're also seeing how we can get UK investment into China. How do we create income streams for British companies that will produce revenues for the UK in the future, for example? How do we get our big companies to get a foothold? I've been raising issues around transparency and consistency of regulation here, which are issues raised by British business. But there's a huge enthusiasm. We've had a 25% increase in British exports to China in the past year. We've had a better rebalancing of the trade flows between us, and that's given, I think, a lot of confidence in the future relationship. And here we've been able to agree a further £9 billion of real trade with China as a result of the Prime Minister's visit.
At a time when America and Europe are increasingly concerned about Chinese trade practices, are we right to be embracing China? Yes,
and we make the arguments here that if we're going to have an open and liberal global trading system, it has to be rules-based. We believe that the WTO system is the best to do that, and we think that that has to include transparency on those rules and enforceability, issues that we've been discussing very openly with our Chinese counterparts. And I find that argument and that debate is actually more open now than it's ever been before. So yes, we want to ensure that we get a good bilateral relationship, but we also want to ensure that China is properly embraced and embracing the global rules.
This delegation, but the overwhelming message from business still is that they want to stay very closely aligned with Europe, don't they?
Well, not the businesses here. They're talking about taking advantage of global growth. 90% of that global growth, according to the IMF, will be outside Europe in the next 10 to 15 years. We're seeing a huge interest in British business beyond that. Less than half of our trade is with the European Union. Only 43% of our exports now go to Europe. So we need to look to those growing bits of the global market. We've had a lot of British companies here representing everything from our small SMEs right up to big companies like BP. So there's a huge interest in what is happening. We've got to get away from a Eurocentric view of the world. Europe is a declining part of the global economy. We as a country need to be exporting and investing in the growing parts of the global economy.
The Prime Minister has been dogged by questions about her leadership during this trip. What do you say to those criticising her back home?
Yeah. Well, you see, she's not been dogged by those questions here. They look at the Prime Minister here and they see the Prime Minister leading a country which has got record employment, which has seen the highest investment in its country in our history last year, that's seeing a growing export performance, that's seen 58,000 tech startups in the UK in the past year. They're seeing a very vibrant British economy. Even if you take it at the Conservative Party level at home, we've been consistently above 40%. For the last 2 years, I can't even remember a time in my political career where that happened. And I think people now need to focus on the economic reality and the success of the United Kingdom to celebrate that and to go forward from that.
But it's difficult for her to project an image of global leadership when she's being criticised by members of her own party back home.
We see not everybody puts the views of British domestic politics at the top of their agenda. When I'm talking to businesses here, they're looking at the UK and they're saying more venture capital on tech went into London last year than the whole of Germany, France, Spain and Ireland combined. That's the reality. They're seeing the increase in foreign direct investment into Britain. That's a reality. The opportunities for returns in the UK economy, that's the reality. That's what business people focus on, not political tittle-tattle.
Do you think she'll still be leading the party at the next election?
Well, I will give the full support to the Prime Minister as long as she wants to lead my party. I think she is doing an excellent job, and I do wish more of my colleagues could see the sort of leadership and commitment and positive agenda that's being projected for Britain here in China.